Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. Smirks first. Let's see. Brent, Leary.
I wasn't smirking. What do you mean smirks?
Oh, there was a flicker of a smirk.
A smirker.
Howdy, y'all.
Thank you. Frank Radice, welcome.
Glad to be here.
So are we going to hear some fire sign quotes, or are you going to clear your brain?
I'm going to clear my brain.
Also on the same wavelength is Michael Markman. Welcome, Michael.
How do you do?
And then there's some guy in the Midwest, Marsh, in the upper left corner.
Midwest Marsh.
Yeah, it's Denis Pombriant.
Steve, it's Dennis. Come in. Please, Steve, I'm in Boston today.
Love that improv. Love it.
He's in the cornfields of Boston. That's pretty
And
cool.
last but not least, Keith Teare. Welcome, Keith.
You know, I never said that. I don't know who I am. I don't remember ever saying I was Keith Teare. I'm sure I'm not Keith Teare. Sorry, I'm just doing it.
This is incredible comedy material.
Yeah. Wherever you go, there you are.
And you know who said that first?
Wasn't it Professor Irwin Leary? I mean,
Corey.
Irwin Leary, as related to the Leary who did LSD, Leary.
Uncle Irwin.
Brent Leary. Are you related to the guy who invented LSD, Brent? That's the
Uncle Tim? Yeah, sure.
Uncle Tim.
Hey, speaking of uncles, I don't know if you caught this bit on the Trump town hall last night. Trump was talking about retweeting some nonsense, and Savannah Guthrie said to him, "You know, you're not someone's crazy uncle."
That was pretty amazing.
To which Mary Trump tweeted, "Actually, ..
You know what? That's a really good way to get into, I think, the most important thing to talk about right now. Yesterday afternoon and the day before yesterday, a whole bunch of us who worked at NBC, at NBC News, a lot of us, including the first woman executive producer of NBC News, and just a lot of people were up in arms about the fact that NBC had, acquiesced to Donald Trump's pressure to get the time slot that was directly across from Biden, and everyone was, complaining about it. And can't we get this changed? And someone even said to me, "Don't you know the president of ABC News? Can't you call him? Maybe he'll listen to you." And I went, "What are you, nuts?" First of all, no. But I was equally as incensed, thought it was a really bad idea. And then after having seen much of it, because I didn't stay awake to watch it last night, I thought Savannah Guthrie did an incredibly good job. Donald Trump did absolutely everything he could to be as unhinged and unprepared as he possibly could be. And just letting him talk seemed to me to be the best thing that could have happened. And the overnight ratings proved Biden won.
Yes.
Well,
and by the way, Trump proved that
that doesn't include MSNBC and CNBC, certainly, but still on a level playing field. And in the overnights, he won both in the total households and 18 to 49.
Trump proved that he's one of the rare people who can lose a debate when he's the only one on stage.
My observation is different. It's like Biden reminded me of my, kind grandpa, and Trump does remind me of a crazy uncle. But kind grandpa is kind of BS as well. Kind grandpas are good for getting candy when you go to visit them, but not to be president.
Well, I don't know.
I'm not sure I want to be at your house for Thanksgiving. You got some weird.
Yeah. And honestly, Keith, how much of this? We need a little meter, which goes like this. when you actually are saying something that you actually think. And it goes like this when you just said it.
Okay.
You mean to create tension among the gang?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Agent provocateur here.
I like to be
Yeah.
no,
moderator wannabes.
but
That's
all I'm
all.
saying is the bar is so low that Biden winning is not an achievement.
Yeah, I'll take it.
You know what?
I'll take it.
You know what though? I mean, NBC did a full court press in the marketing of the Donald Trump town hall. They marketed it on every one of their networks, not just NBC, MSNBC, and CNBC, but USA and Sci-Fi and Bravo. It was everywhere, and also on all of their streaming. And interestingly enough, although they did have a pretty sizable audience, they still weren't able to beat Biden, A, and B, yeah, kind grandfather, but on the other hand, he sounded like the kind grandfather who actually had yet to become senile, because he knew what his plans were. He had something to say about almost everything, except for maybe court packing, and I thought he had a pretty good answer on that. He laid out plans. Trump continued to say the same stuff he always says at his rallies, and it felt to me like, I actually think people, certainly I, are just getting tired of the shtick.
I
Well,
agree
not
with
only
that.
that, not only that,
I think he's the kindly old uncle if your uncle's a policy monk. You may remember, I don't know, you may remember the Dan Aykroyd routine where he was parodying Jimmy Carter, getting into policy weeds with every question.
Yeah.
And that's what Biden reminded me of. I mean, there was just so much detail and so much range in his answers. It was very impressive, even if it was a little boring. I mean, he didn't reach the soaring heights of emotional uplift that you might expect from a candidate. But I think this was better.
Yeah, taking off on something Frank just completed, this exam has to be graded on a curve. The curve is crazy to acceptably rational, and I think based on that curve, Biden appears to have done quite well and has been doing quite well for a long time.
Based on that curve, my middle son would get a 3.6 GPA and get to college.
How's
Well,
that going?
there's only one Trump, thank goodness.
There's a great documentary going on BBC. It started last night, or BBC Two, a Trump documentary. It's really good, and they talk to all the usual suspects, but in a very candid way. And from Omarosa to to Reince Priebus to, I mean, literally just everybody. It was just episode 1. I haven't seen any of the others, but the Brits, Keith, the Brits have a way of seeing things in black and white and pretty clearly, and making their point without coming right out and saying what some of us might actually come out and say. They actually don't have to. They let other people say it. And I'm.
But Frank, I only have one answer to that. Boris Johnson. I mean, the Brits certainly are good at some things, but
Yeah.
Boris
Well, we are going to have a no deal Brexit, apparently.
What does that mean?
That we'll have Brexit with no deal between us and
tourists.
the European Union.
Tourists in Yiddish.
Yeah.
It means
Yes.
it means the UK will have no trade policy with the rest of Europe.
Funny thing is, and it seems to me, isn't the big sticking point fishing?
Fishing's a big one, always was, by the way. Go and do
Yeah.
a Google search on the fishing wars with Iceland and Norway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So God, I got a haddock. Let's go down to the fish market and sing for the
Take some
halibut.
aspirin for it.
By the way, when the primary food of the nation is fish and chips, don't underestimate how important that is.
No, no. It just was an easy target. That's all.
Wow. This couldn't be going better.
I did have a viewer send me a note saying you old white guys are really boring. So I said to him, well, then don't watch. And he goes, hey, that's great advice. I immediately unfriended him.
I
Well,
have to say, I've been called many things in my life. That was never one of them before.
Well, I'm telling you what he said. I actually showed him the picture. I said, hey, look at this picture again.
Brent, you're just blending into the rest of us. It's guilt by association.
I was like, wow, really?
Well,
You need to get an HDR camera so that the true tones can come through.
No, it's because he does that profile shot. That's the reason. You can't, who is that guy?
Me and Dennis are definitely pink, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I knew there was something.
Steve
Let-
is looking at his watch. Steve,
let me-
I'm the
wondering
one who
what-
looks like a Brit.
How did this go so terribly wrong, Steve?
I don't know.
How is it still going terribly wrong? That's what I'm concerned about.
Anyways, I only watched a little bit of the Trump one, the last 10 minutes. And I thought the interviewer was awesome. I thought the questions, even the sympathetic ones, were really well presented and well asked. I didn't think he did that bad for his own audience. I thought he wouldn't have lost any votes last night. He wouldn't have gained any votes. That would be tough for him anyway. But he is who he is. And I read this Times piece this week that Morning Joe spent half an hour on, saying, it isn't over yet. Trump voters don't tell the truth to pollsters. And it's way closer. And then apparently the Biden campaign, who the Times interviewed, confirmed that their numbers only show them 2 to 3 points ahead in places where the polls are saying 8 to 10. So, there is still an underlying potential that we really just don't know what's going on.
2 days ago, there was a New York
is
Times
Brent,
story
is
that
Brent
made that
writing
point.
your script?
Who? Brent, yeah.
Brent,
No, I'm just feeding
2
you.
days ago.
Did he slip you some talking points overnight?
Look, I don't think it's a stupid thing for the Democrats to put out there that they that we shouldn't, or you shouldn't, or anyone shouldn't be concerned. I think that's actually probably a good thing. There was a story in the Times, I think it was the day before yesterday, that made that point that if you think that the distance between the two candidates is plus or minus is 3 points above in Georgia, you're crazy. It just isn't.
I'm not buying that one myself. Not buying that.
So I thought that from that perspective, that's a good place to be. You don't want to go into it, right, being complacent, but I don't think anyone's being complacent. I think haven't the pre-election voting numbers already proven to be just out of sight? This huge.
Absolutely. The first early voting and early mail-in ballots are incredible. At least 10% of the whole electorate has already voted. That's astonishing. There's obviously been a lot of pent-up demand from people who are just so eager to get Trump out of the White House that the moment the polls opened for early voting, they showed up. So it'll be interesting to see if that intensity continues throughout the rest of the period.
Yeah.
In California, we just got our ballots last week, and you can't drop them off anywhere till October the 31st.
Unless you drop them off into that illegal Republican ballot box,
Yeah, exactly. That was
which
I thought that was pretty clever.
well, and the local election official said that was illegal and get rid of it, and the Republicans basically said, nah,
Yeah.
not going to do it.
So is there no legal recourse I mean, you give them a cease and desist order, and they ignore it, and then what? You stop?
And then we have an
Well,
election.
then you got to take them to court. But the problem is that you die by 1,000 paper cuts. If you go out and pursue every one of these things that break a norm or a minor law, then you're dissipating your ability to maybe fight later over a recount.
And they never filed a legitimate court action, from what I understand. Anyway, I could be wrong about that. For those of you out in California, tell
So
me.
it was just a nasty letter from my lawyer. Huh?
I think that's what it was. And who hasn't gotten one of those?
Speaking of paper cuts, it was pointed out, I don't know who first, but if the Barrett nomination goes through, the Supreme Court will have 3 lawyers who worked for the Bush side of the Bush v. Gore lawsuit in 2000.
I want to talk a bit about her because the one answer I saw him give Trump last night was.
No, I want to hear what I don't want to go to herd immunity until we've exhausted the possibility that there's any intelligence about the election. So,
No, I said I want to talk about the Supreme Court nomination.
Her.
Not heard.
Her.
You misheard.
Her.
You misheard.
Yeah, you heard. You added a D there.
her immunity. in other words.
Herd.
Herd mentality.
So tell me, I'm probably really naive, but I actually believe that judges mostly don't have politics. In other words, they are mainly judges, and the reason the Supreme Court never does what you expect it's going to do is because the politics don't govern the result. The interpretation of law does, and I don't think the nominee is going to necessarily vote the way Trump supporters think she's going to vote. I suspect that she will just be a decent judge and will figure out based on the law.
Can I agree with you? Can I agree with you, Keith? I completely agree that you're naive.
There was a really good story, though, in the last, I think it was the Wall Street Journal that wrote why Barrett will not vote to eliminate the Obamacare. And it made some pretty interesting points, a lot of which sounded a lot like your sort of naive position, Keith.
No, because I believe the judiciary is actually independent.
Well, they're supposed to be.
Well,
You know what?
That ignores the entire program of the Federalist Society that's been running since 1971, which begins with recruiting people in law school and managing their careers and giving them opportunities. These people who make it to the final shortlist that the Federalist Society submits to the White House have been vetted for 10 or 20 or 30 years. They give speeches, they write articles, and that gets winnowed down based on the opinions that the Federalist Society has a good deal of confidence in. So it's not simply independent judgment. It's actually an unnatural selection process.
Well, the intellectual case for insurrection would start with the judiciary is not independent. In other words, if it really isn't independent, the human race has no hope, right? Really. I mean, reform doesn't cut it because the judiciary isn't independent. It's going to, ultimately, everything goes to the Supreme Court and they're going to do what they're going to do and their status quo or...
Yeah, but that's like saying that if, there's nothing good on TV, then you'll settle, you'll just turn it off. And in fact, most people will settle for something.
That used to be true for me, but less and less these days. Now
I know, but
My God, you got 90 million things to watch now. You never settle.
Oh yeah, you settle because you got 99 million.
No, I mean, you do settle.
Moderately boring, and then you've got one that hasn't started yet, and you're still back to square
Waiting
one.
Does anyone think? I think Trump said in one of his answers to a question from Savannah yesterday that that it would be wrong for me to talk to Judge Barrett, and they were specifically talking about the Roe versus Wade. Does anyone actually think that they did not have that conversation?
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter
Brent.
whether they had that
I
conversation.
think the whole
It
game,
doesn't matter. The whole
game
Federalist
is to-
Society scam is to route around that conversation. The conversation doesn't matter. At the time it gets to the White House, Trump already knows what her position is, and it's been certified and reinforced year after year after year.
yeah, they
Whether
talk,
they had the conversation or not.
Trump talks
Yeah,
to,
but you know he's going to want to put that question directly to her in the White House, between the two of them, almost like the I demand loyalty conversation he had with Comey.
Oh, sure, because
that
you're
went well.
you're assuming that if he told you something that he didn't really do it, I mean, he's lied so many times, you might as well just accept whatever the reverse is as whatever he said.
The bottom line here is that he has been told, here's how you handle this question. And he was told that by the Federalist Society. They're a buffer in between the candidate and the president.
And frankly, I don't think Trump is that invested in Roe v. Wade. His number one issue is election adjudication. That's his number one issue, and his number two issue is Obamacare. Roe v. Wade is,
No,
I'm just using that as an example. I agree. I mean, he's on record as saying back before 2015 that he was pro-choice anyway.
Yeah.
I would say that if Roe v. Wade was really in danger, in an era where the Republic of Ireland voted 70% in favor of abortion rights, if that were ever to happen, it would be the start of a radical transformation in the United States, a rewriting of the Constitution, and the Supreme Court would be swept away in a tide, because most people wouldn't accept Roe v. Wade being overturned.
But we put up Roe v. Wade as kind of a binary issue, and it's not. Roe v. Wade can stand, and abortion rights can be whittled away as they have been for the last 10 years, closing clinics, putting up all kinds of obstacles and necessary steps before you can perform an abortion.
At the state level.
Invasive ultrasound and making it harder and harder, parental consent and so forth. So Roe v. Wade is, to some extent, beside the point. There's still plenty of other ways of restricting abortion rights.
Well, and quite honestly, isn't that kind of the same thing he's doing with Obamacare? He's whittling away at it, and even if he doesn't, I mean, he never achieved repeal and replace, because he's got nothing to replace it with. But he's taking these little things and making it more difficult for people.
But he doesn't care about repeal.
Let me just add a couple of things here. First of all, on Obamacare, the easy thing to do to fix it would be to pass a different law by Congress to finesse what was deemed an unnecessary. What do you call that? What was the thing the
mandate? The mandate?
Yeah, the mandate. All you got to do is replace the mandate, and all of a sudden everything works again. But more fundamentally, when you talk about Roe v. Wade, you can't. Let me make an analogy. Prohibition started with an amendment because it required taking a right away from people, the right to purchase and use alcohol. The prohibition ended with an amendment because it gave back that right. The Supreme Court has decided on the right to privacy, and as an adjunct to that, Roe v. Wade, but also Griswold versus Connecticut and other rulings leading up to it. It strikes me that the Supreme Court cannot weigh in again, reconstituted, to give you a different answer to Roe v. Wade. The only way to change the abortion complexion of this country is to have a constitutional amendment. We have never gone the amendment route because less than 20% of the American people care to remove those protections, those rights. So we are about to enter into a very dangerous time when the Supreme Court is actually ruling on the constitutionality of the Constitution. And that is way beyond their pay grade.
Well, except that in the originalist doctrine, if something isn't explicitly in the Constitution, then it's not in the Constitution. So supporting abortion rights based on privacy is an interpretation of what privacy entails. And so the originalist point of view, the Federalist Society point of view is unless the Constitution said women have a right to an abortion, then it's not in the Constitution. You can't derive what's in the Constitution based on anything but the text.
Not so fast. In order to accept that, you have to accept the idea that these Federalists have decided that what's on that particular interpretation. That interpretation goes against things like the Interstate Commerce Clause and the Necessary and Proper Clause, which are, I believe, both vested in the Article 1. The Constitution is a wonderfully jeweled movement that pits a lot of checks and balances against one another. You can't simply say that something was wrongly decided. You can't simply say that well, it's not there, so it doesn't count. The Constitution was built to stand the test of time, and things like I've just mentioned are tools by which the Constitution can evolve to take on the unique aspects of modernity.
Well, isn't Brown versus Board of Education an example of the Supreme Court reversing its interpretation of the Constitution?
What was the case it reversed?
It was I don't remember the case, but they had previously ruled that separate but equal
That was
school
Plessy versus
systems.
Ferguson.
Plessy, okay. Plessy versus Ferguson.
Yeah. So they reversed a previous interpretation.
Yeah, they did.
That's always possible, isn't it? If the judges change.
Well, we're not talking about.
That's pretty anti-originalist.
We're talking about eliminating a right. They talked about super precedents or super whatever this week in the hearings.
But
I don't think it's kosher to come along and say that a right that was granted can simply be taken out. I mean, you can't.
I hope you're right.
No, I think you can. I mean, let's be very extreme. I heard a PBS show this week where Democrats were talking about a completely new constitution, starting from scratch. It was a side issue and it wasn't likely to happen, but there was a really serious, proper discussion about why wouldn't we just write a brand new constitution for 2020 and forward. And let's imagine that became supported and a party was elected with that as their agenda. They could totally do it, right?
Well, there already is a movement, you know.
No, the states would have to adopt.
Within the Constitution, there's an opportunity to call a new constitutional convention.
Right.
And it requires, what, 3/4 of the states in order to do that?
States.
But I mean,
there already are states that have called for a new constitution. You know, once you throw up the whole pack of cards and reshuffle it, who knows which way it's going to come out?
Oh, I know, because it's not going to happen.
I agree with that.
Let's take.
Okay. So why are we talking about science fiction when we should be talking about, I don't know what, but it sure as hell shouldn't be something that's not going to happen.
Well, I was just making the point that change is possible, and you can't rule anything out. And it's all about majorities and movements.
Would you put that same thought process into the possibility of the states making the decision to eliminate the Electoral College? Aren't there already some 20 some odd states that have already said that they're ready to get rid of it, and there only needs to be like another 15 or 16 that have to jump on board in order to make it happen.
Well, they don't actually get rid of it. They route around it. It's still there.
Or that. Yeah.
It would
Well,
take the problem. It would take a long-term point of view, and politicians tend to be very short-term. So let's say the Democrats swept both houses. The impetus to do that would suddenly be deflated because they'd think they're benefiting from it now.
Right.
It's a bit like in the UK. They always talk about the UK voting system needs proportional representation.
Yeah, until somebody wins it.
Well, somebody wins and they say, "Oh, I changed my mind."
Yeah.
So I think politicians are by nature short term. It's very.
They are, but I do think things might be a little bit different now because there's been so much focus, especially Senator Whitehouse's presentation on the Federalist Society and the way dark money has worked to push the whole federal judiciary to the right. There's much more awareness of what long-term thinking can get you. And I think among Democrats, they're now more aware of how playing the short game has not helped them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I think we're at an inflection point in history, and it's causing a lot of people to think differently. And I think if the Democrats have a good election, 2021 is going to be a very different year.
Okay, so Brent, if the Democrats have a good election, how's that going for you?
Oh, we got 18 days. I mean, I tend to believe that somebody, I forgot who it was, said something about there's a percentage of voters that don't want to say that they're voting for Trump that will, and probably those skewed towards the folks in the battleground states. I don't know. I just think that it's too early to tell. It's too early to say what's going to happen. I honestly could see multiple different scenarios of what happens. And maybe Michael, the thing that you sent me, that article where there's like 4 different scenarios and 3 out of the 4 are pretty. I mean, you almost want to jump off a ledge if you go with any of those kind of end game results. But I don't know. I still think it's for all the things that this guy has said and done, and every day that passes, there's more that he's said and done. Those numbers aren't budging too much.
I wonder, are there any October surprises still on the oven? Still, it seems to me like the couple of October surprises that we thought were coming, like the Russia investigation, which
the
Barr said
unmasking
today,
thing.
It's not going to happen until after the election.
Well, didn't one of them just kind of willowed and died?
Well, unmasking Willow,
one?
that one went and died, but there's the other one that's being done by that underling of Barr, whose name I can't remember right now. It sounds like that's going away.
And there was the Hunter Biden emails that popped up and popped down within 2 days.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, the laptop that was found in some dodgy guy's store in Jersey.
Thought it was Delaware.
Here's an October surprise.
Or wherever. Delaware, of course.
Well,
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Here's an October surprise.
Delaware, Jersey.
Sick, and Trump prevents him from getting monoclonal antibodies and remdesivir.
Wow.
Yeah, he gave them all to Chris Christie.
That's my well. They only had 50,000 doses.
Yeah, but don't worry. There's plenty of hydrochloroquine to go around, so we'll all be
And
all right.
Drano.
Drano. I saw the Clorox stock went down today. That was a surprise. Maybe that's what he's talking about.
You follow the Clorox stock price?
Yes, I have been. Look, don't ask me what stock prices we follow here. We follow everything, even the most obscure stock prices.
We're not making
Most
any
of them are stocks that most of them are stocks that we go, God, we should have bought that.
Well, wasn't the latest October surprise Giuliani's daughter writing something about you should go and vote for Biden because the end the reign of terror or something like that?
Yes, that posted last night.
So you got
crazy
with Mary, and you've got the crazy daddy with Giuliani's daughter.
You got Kellyanne Conway's
nobody
daughter.
cares. Yeah, Kelly. Oh my God, that might have been the worst. That was kind of frightening. What was going on with that? You know that
Conway.
She got
Conway's daughter and her on that TikTok video.
Yeah, she got Kellyanne to drop an F-bomb too.
Did they do that thing?
If you were her mum, you'd drop an F-bomb as well.
The daughter is suing for her independence.
Makes sense.
Can't say that I blame her, actually.
Me neither.
Well,
that thing, Steve, is this dance that everyone does on TikTok with this same piece of music. It's kind of weird. Yeah, you kind of have to see it.
I'm going to make a confession. I actually like Kellyanne Conway. She's one of my favorite people. I love her ability to ignore the truth and just blast through it.
She taught it to McEnany really well.
Yeah.
She did invent a really great term, alternative facts. I mean, that was, wow.
Amazing. I mean, she's just, she basically just can tough out any conversation, no matter how ridiculous she is being, and give the impression that she's the smart one.
She hears in tongues.
what's interesting to me is that, remember Mary Madeline?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have we seen
What's
her?
his name's wife?
Carville.
We haven't, which is interesting. Carville. We see Carville around a lot, but that's a good point.
I think it's because she doesn't want to say anything.
Well, I find it interesting that there seems to be movement on the Fox side. Look at the James Murdoch's position publicly was pretty dramatic the other day. I guess it was 2 or 3 days ago. Even aside from Chris Wallace and a couple of other anchors on Fox, other than Maria Bartiromo, I just don't know what happened to her. She just fell into the Lou Dobbs pit. But there seems to be, I wonder if it's okay, if Trump loses, what the heck are we going to do? I think that's a really good question. What does it mean?
We know what they're going to do. What did they do during the Obama years? They'll
trash whoever's in the. Yeah, but do they get as much out of trashing who's in the office as they do out of supporting someone who is not in the office and is on their side? I don't know. I don't think so.
It depends what you mean by get, because I think there will be a whole lot of disaffected Trump supporters who will need to flock somewhere to be fed.
Yeah,
and so it probably their ratings will not suffer. I think MSNBC's ratings are going to suffer, CNN's ratings are going to suffer, but I think Fox's ratings
ratings are going to suffer because Trump TV will start up.
The more interesting question to me is what happens if Trump wins, and like for Denis, what's the post-election explanation if Trump wins?
Yeah,
that's a good one. That's a good. What is the Trump wins and then the catchphrase after that? What is that?
Make Trump richer again.
Hands up.
Did you all see the report yesterday that Rupert is privately telling people that he expects Trump to lose badly?
Yeah, that was a big one.
Landslide?
New York Magazine, I guess New Yorker, one of them had an interesting graphic image of Rupert.
Okay, here we go. Starting with Denis. Who's going to win?
Who's going to win?
Yes, sir.
Biden. Biden's definitely going to win.
Steve Gillmor. Who's going to win? I don't know. Brent Leary.
Pick a side.
I'm sticking with what I've been saying.
Yeah, but what you've been saying is not who's going to win. It's,
Oh, okay. What was I saying?
well, all right. So let me hear you say it.
Who's gonna win? Right now I'm still sticking with the current resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Okay. Keith.
Biden landslide, both the popular vote and the electoral college.
Well, who cares about the popular vote? So what's the landslide that you speak of in the electoral college? What does
It'll
that
be
look like?
Reagan-esque.
What does that look like?
It looks
Numbers.
like it looks.
Didn't Reagan win 49 states? I don't see that.
I think Biden will win more than 40 states.
So
I don't see that.
approximately how many electoral college votes?
I can't do the math, so I don't
Well,
know.
it depends on the state. They all have different numbers of
Yeah.
votes available to them.
Okay.
Yeah, but if he wins
Florida,
40,
yes or no?
huge.
I didn't hear the question.
Florida, yes or no?
Biden.
Wow.
North Carolina.
What about Texas?
Yeah, let me get.
No, not Texas. Texas is staying red, which is a contradiction for me because red means communist. But anyway,
Okay, but North Carolina.
toss up.
No, toss up is not acceptable.
Trump.
Okay, so which four of the battleground states is Biden going to win?
All the northeastern ones.
That's right.
Okay, so you mean Ohio?
I mean, you know, I'm
Ohio,
Brit.
Wisconsin,
So if you
Michigan.
forced me to tell you the names of states in the northeast,
Pennsylvania?
It's a Brit, for God's sake, Steve.
It would be Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota,
Michigan.
Michigan.
yeah.
And
What about Iowa?
frankly, Ohio's breaking for Biden right now.
Okay, so thank you, Keith.
Michael?
The guy with in the front of the marsh is playing the role of Keith in terms of answering the question.
Helping my friend.
Okay, so Michael Markman.
Who's going to win? The American people. Absolutely.
Wow.
Here's my virtual flag right here.
It's going to be a Biden win. He's going to easily top the 270, probably top 300.
Okay, Frank Radice.
Biden and the Senate
Oh.
Well,
flips.
you're okay.
Did he just go one question ahead?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course
he
he
did.
I
did.
did.
Yeah,
Of course I did.
he invalidated his ballot as well.
Yeah, oh God, I signed it. Too late.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't put it in a security envelope. Next time,
Everybody
I did.
follow the rules.
This is
I
not
put it in a
Gillmor
security, and
game.
I put a lot of extra tape on it too, and then I mailed it.
Okay, so the way I count right now, there's allegedly one vote for Trump.
Yeah.
No, not for Trump. It's just that you asked me what I thought. He was
Prediction.
gonna
One
win.
predictive vote.
I don't want him to win. I still don't want him to win. But
Well,
So it's 1 out of
you're
6.
consistent about that, and you've been also consistent that you think that he's going to, pull a rabbit out of the hat.
or some other place. Yeah.
So what about
Nothing
you?
up my sleeve.
You went from being a Biden pick to being neutral today.
Well, I want to be right, so that's what I'm.
Well,
I'm holding
somebody's
out
going to
for
win the
absolute
election. So
right.
with your prediction, you're not going to be right.
If
Come
I
on,
said-
Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
I would say that Biden will win, but what I'm really trying to poke at is how is Biden going to win? Because all of the noise at this stage of the election, which is now 18, 19 million people have already voted. So what is that? About 10% of the electorate's already voted.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So on the other hand, the number of people that actually go to the polls, assuming that they believe the idea that they don't need to wear masks and that they can just, ignore the pandemic, there are a lot more of those people than there are people who are voting by remotely. I mean, that seems to be what the data shows. Because if it isn't what the data shows, then this is 2018 all over again, and it's going to be a slowly crescendoing wave over the course of the evening.
2018.
Yeah. I mean, we all thought
when the Democrats took all the House seats.
Yeah,
right.
but
on election night, it wasn't that clear how much they were ahead.
It turned out they had about a 6-point margin ultimately. So, everything that my fears suggest that Trump is even money. Every other piece of data suggests that Trump will lose, including the way that he's behaving.
But I think what we can't know and don't know, and we shouldn't pretend to know, is what is often described in the media as non-college educated white men. But I think that's a metaphor for a whole swathe, demographic swathe. How pissed off they are with politicians in general, and the extent to which they see Trump as the anti-politician, the hatred of political correctness and wokeness. We don't really know how deep and how widespread that is, because the very nature of that animal is it doesn't speak its name. And so there's always a chance of a surprise.
Yeah, but there's always a chance of a surprise in anything. But that what actually happens is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Right. So
that demographic is a demographic that has traditionally not voted before. Isn't that true? That's a big question. That's a question mark.
The Times article I referred to earlier had voter registration numbers for Republicans across every state, and they beat the Democrats massively in every state in terms of new voter registrations, which is those people, by the way.
Except Arizona.
Except Arizona, I didn't spot that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Correction.
Yeah, but the thing you're not accounting for is that there are a lot of Republicans who are crossing lines this year to support Biden because they're totally disgusted with Trump. For example, women are breaking for Biden significantly, and suburban women especially have been a Republican bastion. And it doesn't look like that firewall is holding up. There are other cases like that too. So
65 plus is another one.
Yeah, the elderly.
Yeah, voter registration is an important metric, but it's not a tell.
It's not like the 65 plus people are going to go and register. They've already registered. Actually, they've probably already voted.
I was just going to say, women...
the great voodoo in all of polling, in all of election predictions, in all of campaign management is turnout. And that is much harder to gauge and much harder to guess. So, we have to assume that anyone that is leaning towards Trump is going to show up. So the question is how many people who are leaning away from him will show up. And
Brent, you're trying to say?
Oh, I was just going to say the thing about the women breaking for Biden is true, but did you see the town hall, the Trump town hall? The one woman sitting behind him with the pink mask, almost every damn thing he said. Just
did you see Sarah Cooper's tweet about that this morning?
No.
They're going to remake Taken, starring her, and they're going to call it Token.
Didn't I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is fake news or not, but didn't I read somewhere that this particular individual is a model, B, someone that actually has run for office, and C, had more visibility nodding her head than she had during the entire time she ran for office. I just read that like an hour or so ago. I don't know if it's true or not. May have been a Borowitz.
Or D, it was Omarosa in disguise or something.
She's an ex-beauty
By the
queen.
way,
She's an ex-beauty queen who ran for Congress.
I was right. Omarosa, by the way, is the star of the first episode of the documentary on BBC Two.
Just
She's
one correction. You can't be an ex-beauty queen. Once a beauty queen, always a beauty queen.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Go out on a limb
Does
there.
anybody want to talk about the West Wing reunion show?
Oh,
Ooh.
can't wait.
It's on.
Can't wait.
It's already on HBO here.
Really?
HBO Max.
HBO Max. Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't
that
know
is.
when it's going to come here. I can't wait.
It's on HBO Max. I think the 20-something. I forget the exact day, but it's coming up in the next week. The cast was on Stephen Colbert the other night, and it was very interesting what the way they're putting this show together. They're simply reshooting a popular episode, and they're doing it live on stage.
They've done it. You can actually watch it already on HBO Max. I almost watched it last night. Unless it's a trailer. I could have mistaken it for it could be a trailer. But
Well, I recently watched the original episode, and so it's fresh in my mind. I can't wait to see it.
Which episode?
It's the Hartsfield Landing episode.
Exactly.
And, what's his name? The writer
Sorkin
was on,
Right.
was on The View yesterday. And they ran clips of it, and it just looks fantastic. I mean, I seeing that and seeing the Comey rule and seeing this BBC documentary right now, it's really a time for this kind of video content out there. I hate to go back to this thing, but what is going to happen? How will the media react? I don't just mean the news media either. It seems like a whole dearth of stuff. Think about late night comedy. Although, hey, by the way, Steve, Dangerfield's just closed, by the way. So
Oh no!
there's that.
No big loss.
Oh.
It don't get no respect from nobody.
I mean, there was Catch a Rising Star, the Comedy Store. There's a good series documentary on what is it, Showtime, about the Comedy Store, which we've been watching. Very good for those who think there's something to laugh about. I think that this might be a tell. The West Wing thing might be a tell for Brent's position, which is we've given up, basically. We think that Trump's going to pull it out somehow. And it's back to the alternate universe where things are okay.
And Aaron Sorkin can write anything he wants.
I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, Brent's got
that's
90
it.
seconds. So you want to respond to that, Brent?
I mean, I don't know. Anything can happen. And I remember sitting at dinner on November 8th, 2016 with us, the CEO of, at the time, what were they called? They changed their name to Creatio now. And she's from Kyiv.
BPM Online.
Yeah, sitting with Catherine from BPM Online, having dinner. She's from Kyiv. It's the election night, and she thought it was just a slam dunk what was happening. Then she kept looking at my face when I kept seeing these updates, and I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Are you? I said another word before I said kidding me after that, and so how can that not be etched in your entire being that can happen? That he ran, he got the royal straight flush. And it could happen again. It might be harder, but it could happen again because this dude
it could happen
like
again,
a cat.
But
Got 9 lives.
Look at all the factors that are different. I'm not going to list them, but they're
Only got 10 seconds.
There are at least 10 important factors that are different. One of which is that Clinton had very bad favorability ratings. Another is that even when she was 6 and 8 points ahead, she was still well under 50%. Another is that there was this long, ongoing message about her emails that never went away. It started in the primaries, and it was
It's still there.
it's still there. Trump is still trying to revive it. But then,
That's the thing.
Comey in his late campaign memo.
All right, we'll
put
pick
that
up
on the
on
front page again.
Yeah,
None
we'll
of
pick
those
up
things
on
are
this
happening.
list. Thank
I
you.
gotta go. But I'll just say this:
Bye.
he had the Comey letter, and Obama was in office. This dude is the president right now. He's got 18 days to go. It's not over yet, but it's over for me. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Chow mein.
See you next time. Okay.
When I
I didn't
fell
mean to
asleep
interrupt. I want to hear you had
Mike.
three of 10. So real quick, what were the other 7?
Oh, do I have to go for 7?
See?
Nothing. Yeah, nothing that Trump and Putin and Barr have thrown at Biden has stuck. It's kind of amazing, whereas everything stuck to Hillary.
That's because
The other is that nobody knew what President Trump would be like in 2016. There was a whole group of people who were saying, well, he'll grow into the office. Well, that didn't happen. And another group of people saying, the adults in the room will keep him from doing anything really bad. And he chased all the adults out of the room. So there's nobody who can say, well, let's give him a chance. By the way, in those days, his fictional persona as a successful businessman was still dominant. That's no longer the case. Everybody knows he was not a successful businessman. Everybody knows he was a multiple serial failure as a businessman. In those days, he said, well, I will release my taxes. Now we know he won't release his taxes. In those days, there was no pandemic. Now there is a pandemic. And that's the number one issue. We see how he's mismanaged the pandemic. And going into the election, we find ourselves in a new rise of, they say the South will rise again. I think that's probably their infection rate is going to rise again. Numbers are going up, and typically we've seen that as the COVID infection numbers go up, Trump's popularity goes down, and guess what's going up now? So there's all
Speaking as
kinds
somebody
of
who
things
worked
happening this
with
year that
Donald
just weren't
Trump.
happening 4 years ago.
I think the other
Speaking-
difference is Hillary. The mud stuck to her because she was disliked. With Biden, it's his son, and nobody holds a parent responsible for the actions of a son. I mean, if that was true, we'd all be screwed, right? If we have sons.
No, and if you try and do that to Biden, look at Trump's children. I mean, he's not, he's not the person without sin throwing the first stone.
So if you got
a whole lot deeper.
Is that the 10 basically?
Is that the 10? No, I think there was one more.
I'll give you one more. I'll give you one more, and then we'll rank them.
Oh, okay. If I can remember the one more, I know it's huge. Trump.
Yeah, it's like my best friend. Can't remember his name.
Right.
Was it the fact that he actually does owe $400,000 to $400 million to somebody?
Yeah, he answered that last night.
Yes,
I know.
I got so much money that it's a piece of cake.
Oh yeah, the other is the other thing to look at is Hillary's campaign versus Biden's. Hillary never got to a good message. The best she could do was run anti-Trump ads. But try and remember what she stood for, what she was promoting. She never came to something except I'm with her or stronger together. Biden has two very resonant, powerful messages. One is restoring the soul of the American people, and that really resonates with people in a deep way. And the other is build back better. He's got a program for what he plans to do that really tackles the issues that we have, whether it's healthcare, climate, policing, racial relations. I mean, he's thought it through, and he's got a very strong, consistent in-person presentation and media presentation. Hillary never had that.
Isn't that what Keith called the grandfather position at the beginning of this show? He laid out his plan.
Yeah, it is the brand. Well, grandfather has to do with tonality, but the substance behind the grandfatherliness, the really smart policy wonk grandfather is where he has. So he's got stuff going for him that Hillary was never able to muster.
It's, to me, the missing ingredient, and we've been a little bit spoiled by Obama and Clinton in this, Bill Clinton in this regard. The missing ingredient is you really want your president to be a leader, not only a thinker or a nice person. And leadership involves hard decisions and plans that are kind of groundbreaking or at least risky, but you like them. And so it's missing that kind of excitement. But Steve makes a good point always, which is just getting rid of Trump is the win here. That's correct. But it's hard for me, especially because I was a political activist for many years. It's hard for me to feel good about a bad replacement.
You know,
but he's not a bad replacement. He's not a bad replacement. I mean, his climate plan, while not the most radical out there, is a very strong one, and it's one that has been endorsed by Governor Inslee, who had the best climate plan out there. There's certain places he won't go, but he's going so much farther than anyone ever has gone. His healthcare plan is a tremendous expansion of government support for healthcare. It's not Medicare for all, but it goes much farther than any Democratic program has ever gone. It's always compared to what? Compared to Bernie, he's kind of a moderate, but compared to anyone else who ran for president on the Democratic ticket, he's kind of a radical.
And also leadership, there's an implication that there will be others that he will be leading on his cabinet who will have ideas that he will actually listen to. And I think that that is a hallmark of a good leader. And then listening to those ideas and then determining how to execute on those ideas as part of his particular platform. And I think that that's something that we haven't seen, obviously. And I think that's something that he will do.
That's a very important thing, because there are two parts of leadership. One is the part that's above sea level, the part of the iceberg that you see, which has to do with speeches and being able to come on with the grand uplift. And he's not the best at that. But the other is the part that you don't see, the part that has to do with building coalitions and engaging the talents of people who want to help. And in that, he's proven to be remarkable. He has put together a very strong coalition of people who are a little bit more to the left of him and the people who are all to the right of him. I mean, the fact that he has the support of all of these Republicans in the Lincoln Project and the Republican voters against Trump on one side, and then he's got people like Noam Chomsky on the other side, AOC on the other side, Angela Davis on the other side. I mean, that's remarkable to pull a coalition together that bridges that much of the political spectrum. If that's not leadership, I don't know how you can define leadership.
But it's very important.
Coalition. It's a weak coalition because it's a coalition of opposition to Trump that won't survive the first shots in what comes next.
I don't agree. For the simple reason that what we're talking about here mirrors very, very well the success of the New Deal. Nobody knew, even FDR didn't know when he came into office what he was going to end up doing. He didn't have a massive plan. His only plan was, from his inaugural, was bold, persistent experimentation. And if you look at what came out of the New Deal, the alphabet soup of programs, those were all individually initiated to solve a particular problem. And they came from a variety of different sources. And if Biden can be as effective at bringing in good ideas and cobbling them together, then pretty soon he's going to have a pretty big edifice of success.
Yeah, I agree with that. The most interesting evolution that I've seen is Mayor Pete, who has become an extremely aggressive, effective campaigner for the Biden ticket. The second one would be the vice presidential nominee. She changed her position from being prosecutor to being more of a methodical questioner in the hearings. And she was basically the only Democrat that was able to illustrate the contradictions in what Barrett, the nominee, was saying, or more importantly, what she wouldn't say. If you take a look at if you had some magic spray where you could just spray on each response by the candidate to things, and it would illustrate what she didn't say would be outlined more clearly than what she does say. You would see that the outlines of where her true position is and why the Federalist Society has put her forward and groomed her, as somebody said.
By the way, speaking of Kamala, did any of you catch her interview with Rachel Maddow?
Mm-hmm.
Rachel asked two brilliant questions. The first was, are you as angry with NBC as the rest of us? Which she answered by saying, I'm not going to touch that. And the second question was, did you see The Fly?
Yeah.
Did you see Saturday Night Live's Fly skit? It was pretty funny. That was finally Saturday Night Live is funny again.
All right. So who's going to win the next week's debate?
They're going to be a debate.
You know, you have to define,
they're going to be one.
Define win by any way I'd define it. Biden will. I mean, you know, Trump is very consistent, and so is Biden. So the result is pretty much predictable.
Yeah,
so it's basically the draw goes to, in this case, the challenger. That's interesting.
Keith,
I mean, the point is,
Trump?
If everything that we know from polling is true, and Trump is in a big hole, he has to do something that changes things. And the paradox for Trump is the more outrageous he becomes, the more he cements the reasons people don't like him. So the only radical thing that Trump could do would be to stop being Trump, and people would notice that. But that's impossible. You know, people have been waiting for him to pivot since his inauguration. He can't do it. He's just that guy.
I agree with that. He can only dig a hole deeper than it already is. There's no way of him. He would have to just totally transform, which no one would believe anyway. So even that would dig a deeper hole. So it's a lose-lose for him.
All of that suggests that Trump will find a way to squirm out of the next debate.
Well,
that's why I said, is there going to be a debate
situation? I mean, if he doesn't debate, he's still in the hole. If he debates, he's still in the hole.
And again, Biden just simply doesn't have to do anything. Just
a Biden screw up, if there were, and I don't see one, I can't see where that could come from, but a Biden screw up could have an impact, a big screw up.
Rope-a-dope.
Yeah.
So quick comments on two Republican comments. One is Chris Christie and the other is Ben Sasse.
Ben Sasse has always been. He hasn't been quite as vocal as he was when he was recorded speaking to his constituency in the last couple of days. But I don't think it's a huge surprise that he feels somewhat the way he sounded in that call. And Chris Christie sounds to me like. He's slapping Trump's hand over this mask issue.
Yeah, I think Christie's a big nothing burger. I don't think his quote is worth anything. Sasse is interesting because I think he gives you a microcosm of what's going on inside the heads of Republicans in the Senate. But it's too little, too late.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard Sasse's presentation on the first day of the hearings. He's pretty smart, but really smarmy. And his presentation was filled with all kinds of fallacies that he was pushing forward that were, strict Republican Federalist Society party line. And he did it quite well, but from my perspective, it was incredibly annoying. So I don't quite know what to make of him. I think he's someone who wishes that Trump could have been a little less Trumpy, but is very happy to have Trump in the White House nominating these judges.
Well, my feeling is that Chris Christie, while it is a big nothing burger, is an indication that, where does Chris Christie go? He's already moved out of the administration, even though he participated in debate prep, but he's moved on to ABC, and he's looking at what's going to happen to his livelihood after the election. And I think the same thing is true of Ben Sasse. Ben Sasse is basically saying, I agree with your points about his tactics, Michael, but I think basically what he's saying is this guy's going to lose.
Yeah.
And probably the Senate's going to flip.
Cruz.
You're going to see Sass on MSNBC. He's that kind of Republican who will be a good addition to an MSNBC panel.
Cruz is positioning himself as. Did you see him on Meet the Press last week? He was.
No, I stopped watching Meet the Press.
He was on Meet the Press, and he was much more independent of Trumpisms than I've seen him for a long time. So he's
but who believes a word that he has to say? Not me.
Yeah. But he's positioning himself to be a survivor.
Yeah, but he was positioning himself to be a survivor during the 2016 campaign, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, it did. He won in 2018. So.
Yeah, but what state is he in? Oh, that's right, Texas.
Texas. He barely.
He barely won, but he won because it's a firewall state.
Right.
So the question is, are there any firewall states in this election? And I think the answer, regardless of Brent's, fears, I don't think that they have enough firewall states to keep Trump in office.
No. I mean, their firewall right now is basically up and down the Mississippi or west of the Mississippi with North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, down
all those big juicy packages of electoral votes.
Yeah, right. You know, most of those states have more senators than congressmen. So good luck. And Chris
they're impressive on a map because they're big areas, but they have 3 votes, 5 votes,
Yep.
7 votes.
Let me just get this off my chest. Chris Christie could always get a job as a toll taker on the New Jersey Turnpike.
Yeah, but he can't fit inside one of those booths.
He'd have to shut down that lane in order for it to work.
If he got in, he couldn't get out. So, forget the overtime.
Well, I think that we're nearing the end of this campaign. You thought I was going to say show, right?
Well, I was hoping you were going to say show, but sadly not.
Well, I've beaten back all of your attempts at, what did you call it before? The retribution, the revolution, whatever it is that
insurrection.
Insurrection, right? I think the chance of an insurrection is.
No, I agree. I agree. The chances are 0. I hope the chances are 0 because if there was one, it wouldn't be coming from anyone I have anything in common with. It would be the right.
Exactly.
So is anyone interested in seeing the Chicago 7, the Sorkin's Chicago 7 show? Yeah. Gotta see it.
Yeah.
The question is whether Aaron Sorkin can write and direct without cocaine.
Well, you know what I thought was really funny? He said on The View that he got a phone call from Steven Spielberg, his good friend, which he joked about, saying, you know what, why don't you come on over to my house? And he came over and they sat around and they had a drink and they talked. And he said, we should do a movie about the Chicago 7. Would you be interested in doing that? And Sorkin said, absolutely, I'm all over it. And then Sorkin said he went home and asked his father, who the Chicago Seven were.
And
All right.
now I feel like I can ask, who are the Chicago Seven?
There you go.
Oh, it's an American political group of,
Weathermen.
still haven't given up on the insurrection.
It's an outgrowth of the 1968 Democratic Convention, where there were massive protests in the street, a massive police riot, and subsequently a trial of 7 individuals for having fomented the rebellion in the street.
The English,
One of whom was married to Jane Fonda.
Tom Hayden.
the English equivalent is the Bradford, and I'm thinking it's 6, but it might be 12. The Bradford something, which was a bunch of Asian kids who made Molotov cocktails to try to kill some Nazis in Bradford, and then were all arrested for conspiracy and jailed.
Well,
That reminds
the thing
me-
about the Chicago Seven is that they were all very colorful media presences, and so they were very camera friendly and interview friendly and protest friendly. I mean, they were great on street and on screen personalities.
I remember seeing Tom Hayden speaking at an anti-war rally at the University of Maryland in 1968. It energized everybody. Everybody. Didn't matter what they believed. It just energized everyone on the campus.
So I think it's a little different from the 7 Asian kids who may have made a big bang, but didn't necessarily fill so many TV moments.
It's just the SDS and the Weathermen and that whole wonderful tribe.
The whole constellation of things that Nixon ran against and won.
Yeah.
I was always, as a teenager, really impressed with Black American armed movements. When you saw these pictures of these guys with guns, and
The Hanafi Muslims was a big deal in DC.
I always thought, wow, these guys are serious. They're not taking any shit. And I actually admired them massively, but then you realize they couldn't win.
Cat butt there in that picture, Dennis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In and out.
Is he trying? Are you trying to say something with that cat butt?
I'm trying to tune him to say hi, Uncle Frank.
Oh,
Thanks to our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor.
Tina.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks to Denis Pombriant,
Thanks for having me.
Frank Radice,
great to be here, and thanks to your cat, Dennis.
Michael Markman,
Thank you all. See you next week.
Keith Teare.
Thank you. And Steve Gillmor.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And
18 days.
Ooh, sounds good.
I think that we're going to see in about 6 days, we're going to see a real break for the left.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be. I mean, I still don't believe in a landslide. I think that's, wishful thinking. But if we can hold up with like 3 or 4 solid points in most of the swing states, then we'll take 4 of them, and the election will be done. So I'd rather be on our side
Hopeful
than the other
thinking.
side.
Not wishful thinking, hopeful thinking.
The landslide is wishful as far as I'm concerned. We don't need, the state of California to overwhelmingly vote for Joe Biden. It's meaningless.
I think it'll be interesting that if the landslide occurs, that the music that would be appropriate for it would be another song by Fleetwood Mac.
Yep. Well, I also think the emotional impact on the Republican Party of a massive defeat would lead to some interesting rebirth discussions. Whereas if it's close, that won't happen.
Yeah.
I think we all need to get used to taking yes for an answer. I think this is going to be a blowout.
Well, that's what the 18 days are for.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.